What drove him up that tree? It was out of the ordinary to see a well-dressed, well-educated, high-profile, wealthy man in broad daylight sitting out on a tree on a limb. Well, what made him throw embarrassment to the wind and shame and ridicule and climb out on that limb of that tree?
Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. He climbed up in a sycamore tree, for the Lord he wanted to see. And as the Savior passed that day, he looked up in the tree, and he said, Zacchaeus, you come down, for I'm going to your house today. Zacchaeus was a wee little man, but a happy man was he, for he had seen the Lord that day, and a very happy man was he, and a very happy man was he, and a very happy man was he.
In order to answer that question, I invite you on a journey with me for a few moments this morning to the backside of the Roman Empire, to sweltering Palestine, across difficult terrain, and down to the sea-level city, the resort city of Jericho, the house of a despised man, Zacchaeus, the tax collector. Let's look in, if we can, as he rises at daybreak and observe what he encountered in his endeavors to collect taxes. He gets on his way. He pulls out his smartphone and his GPS device for the names and the addresses of the 4 houses that he wants to visit that day. Watch him with me as he comes to the first house, the first stop. An unkempt little shanty, badly needing paint and repairs. But those things didn't matter to Zacchaeus. The only thing that mattered to him was stamped unpaid next to their name. He knocked. The door to the first house opened with a sort of an eerie sound of something like a horror flick. On the other side stood a frail, blind man. Who's there? I'm Zacchaeus, and I'm here to collect the taxes that you owe the Roman government. And with a trembling voice, the man began to explain his inability to pay his taxes. I have no family. I don't receive no pension, and there's no society to help the blind. I'd like to pay you, Mr. Zacchaeus, but I'm just not able to. But if you can give me 30 days, if you can just give me 30 days. That's not usually my style, said Zacchaeus. But you have 30 days. But Mr. Blind Man, when I come back, if you don't show me the money, then you'll be blind and homeless. As he turned away, Zacchaeus thought, maybe I'll have better luck next time. It wasn't long till he came to the second house that day. He knocks on the door. A woman answers. Zacchaeus quickly sees that there's a problem. The woman is vastly yellow, as if there's no blood in her veins. Her hair is matted. Her face is wet with tears, and her speech is slurred. She says, I know who you are, Mr. Zacchaeus, and why you've come. But, Mr. Zacchaeus, I don't have any way to pay my taxes. You see, for 12 years, I've had this blood disorder. My insurance has canceled. My husband divorced me. My inheritance is spent, but Mr. Zacchaeus, I need 30 days. And Zacchaeus is caught between greed and grace. He says, I don't know why, but I'm going to give you 30 days. But when I come back, I want my taxes. He thinks as he leaves that second place, maybe better luck next time. On Zacchaeus walks, as this story develops, around the bend in the road to the third house, and there stood a woman, listless, staring off into space, is seeming not to recognize that he's getting closer and closer. He tries to get her attention, but there's no response, and suddenly, a blood-curdling scream. Zacchaeus whirls around in the direction of the scream, and on the hillside, running nude between stones in a graveyard, cut and bleeding, is a cross between a man and a wild animal. Suddenly, the woman did speak. That used to be my husband. He was a good man. I'm praying that one day, she says, that he'll come back home to me. I know I should just move on with my life, but I love him, and he's the father of my children. They tell me that it'll never happen, that no man can tame him. He calls himself Legion, she says, because he's possessed with many demons. And not anxious to dialogue with demons, Zacchaeus began to backpedal. Before she could say anything, he said, I'll be back in your ear in 30 days. As he hurried away with his heart still palpitating, he checked his smartphone. One more house to visit. And when he arrived, there's a funeral spray on the door. Someone had died. But it would not stop him. He knocked anyway. A grieving woman dressed in black. Mr. Zacchaeus, my son died yesterday. I'm leaving now for the funeral. I used the tax money to bury my son. Zacchaeus says, well, I've already given some of your neighbors some extra time. I'll be back in 30 days. 30 days pass quickly. Zacchaeus is up at the crack of dawn. It's a day to return to the 4 houses. The 30 days are up. To return to the most unproductive day of his career as a tax collector. He squared his shoulders and he resolved. No sob stories today. Either they pay or they surrender their property or they be thrown in prison. At the first house, he noticed a change. The grass had been manicured. The house had undergone renovation. He knocks, and a man with piercing eyes and authority in his voice answers the door. I'm looking for the man of the house. I am the man of the house. No, I was here 30 days ago. The man I spoke with was blind. I was blind. Let me tell you my story. One day, he says, a man told me that Jesus was coming to town. I made my way there. I wanted to meet him. I heard all the commotion, he said, and Jesus was passing by. I yelled out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. The townspeople, the mayor, the council said, you're a nuisance, you're embarrassing the town. But I yelled again and again. They tried to push me in the background, but I knew this was my only chance. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Zacchaeus, he says, sit down, let me tell you about it. It was like this. Come on. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now Was blind, but now I see. Here's your tax money, he said, Mr. Zacchaeus, as Zacchaeus walked away. What a day, he said. A blind man can see. One day, I hope to meet Jesus. Maybe he can help me, he thinks. I hope to see Jesus someday soon. Zacchaeus comes to the second house. He saw a radiant, beautiful to look upon woman, color in her eyes, new hairstyle, nails manicures. May I speak to the lady of the house? It's me, Mr. Zacchaeus. Wait a minute. Do you know your blind neighbor? Yes, he's not blind anymore. He paid his taxes today. Didn't he tell you? He sold his seeing eye dog. I too met Jesus in a crowd, she says. I touched the hem of his garment, and he healed me. Mr. Zacchaeus, I don't have to pay the medical bills anymore. I've saved a little money. Here's your tax money. Zacchaeus thinks, what an unusual day. I wonder, he thinks, if I could ever meet Jesus. Maybe Jesus can help me with my problems. But he goes on about the task. He comes to the third house. A woman is in the front yard, arm in arm with a handsome young man. Zacchaeus thought about time she ditched that gravedigger. But Mr. Zacchaeus, she said, meet my husband. He stayed in the graveyard, but don't he look good? You see, the boat landed, and he met Jesus. Here's your money, Mr. Zacchaeus. You should meet Jesus too, she says. As Zacchaeus left, he thought, wow, a blind man can see. A dying woman who's full of life. A demon-possessed man who's been delivered. I've had these demons haunting me all my life, he thinks. Maybe Jesus could deliver me. And then the last house of the four. The cutest little 12-year-old boy answers the door. I'm sorry, says Zacchaeus, I'm at the wrong house. There's no little boy in the house I'm looking for. In fact, 30 days ago, the woman of the house was headed to her son's funeral. Are you Mr. Zacchaeus? Mama's been looking for you. She said you'll be back in 30 days. You're never late in collecting taxes. The mother comes to the door, Mr. Zacchaeus. She says, as the mourners and myself led the procession out of Nain, we met another procession coming into Nain, and our procession of death met the procession of deity. We met Jesus. Mr. Zacchaeus, she says, do you know that death and deity cannot occupy the same space? Did you know, she said, that Jesus never preached a funeral sermon? Every time Jesus shows up, he turned the funeral into a resurrection. She says, when Jesus touched my boy, he set up in the casket. The funeral director was so affected, he gave me my money and he ran away. Here's your money for your taxes, Mr. Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus leaves and he says, I wonder if I can meet Jesus. I need help for my life, help for my home. I am a successful failure. I need Jesus, he says. I'm short in stature and I'm short in life. And Zacchaeus sees a crowd. It's Jesus. He gets on tiptoe. He's not tall enough. He sees a tree, a sycamore tree, or someone has said a Seymour tree. He climbs, and Jesus passes right beneath him. Are you encouraged by what Jesus has done for others? Why not today let him help you? Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. He climbed up in a sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. And as the Savior passed his way, he looked up in the tree and said, "Zacchaeus, you come down, for I'm going to your house today." Pass me not, O gentle Savior. Hear my humble cry, while on others you are calling. Do not pass me by.
If the ship of your life is tossing on the sea of strife, you need someone. If you feel so all alone and your house is not a home, you need someone. If you feel life isn't fair and there's no one left to share all those lonely days and nights when things just won't turn out right, and you want someone to care and someone to just be there, you need someone. I give you Jesus. He's the peace that passeth all understanding. I give you Jesus. He's the perfect love that casteth out all fear. I give you Jesus. He's the water that you drink and never thirst again. I give you Jesus, my friend. I give you Jesus. If the pressure's all around keep your spirits to the ground, you need someone. If your body is in pain and your health you can't regain, you need someone. If there are times that you have tried with all the strength you had inside and it seems that you have failed, remember on the cross he nailed all the bitterness and grief to give you peace and sweet relief. He is that someone that you need, so I give you Jesus. He's the peace that passeth all understanding. I give you Jesus. He's the perfect love that casteth out all fear. I give you Jesus. He's the water that you drink and never thirst again. I give you Jesus, my friends. I give you Jesus. you dream